And welcome to the very first episode of 5 Reasons Unscripted. And this show, by the way, is brought to you by PrizePicks.com, which is a revolutionary new daily fantasy game where you pick 2, 3, 4 players to go over or under their fantasy projections. So if you end up getting the right choice, then you are the big winner. You can go cross leagues or you can pick the same sport. Totally up to you. Use the promo code 5. You spell that out, FIVE, and you'll receive a 100% instant deposit matchup up to $100. But make sure first you sign up at prizepicks.com to start winning today. So just so everybody is aware of the premise of this show, whenever we're doing this type of thing, it is because we are about to react to something that is breaking in the news. And that's why we call it unscripted, because nobody saw this coming. And right now, I think this qualifies. So we recently received a thing regarding Xavier Howard being on the trading block. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you gentlemen discuss it right now. And I'm going to start with you, Kai, your reaction to this whole situation. And what do you think might come out of this?
Doesn't make sense to me, to be perfectly honest with you. Unless they are going after, as we were talking about before, and I know Michael has alluded to it in the chat that we've discussed, unless they're going for Stephon Gilmore, who was reportedly recently put in the willing to be traded from the Patriots, as in they might be sellers instead of buyers, considering how awful their offense is and how awful the team has played in recent games. It just doesn't make sense. Unless you're getting another star caliber player, if you believe that Noah is going to turn out all of a sudden, after having some poor performances and you really believe in him, I don't think that I could disagree with Brian Flores. I think that Brian Flores, as we've all seen, knows what he's doing in terms of he knows how to evaluate the talent, and he can, if he sees it's there, he'll try to turn something into it. And we saw it with Nick Needham last season, although Needham, of course, not having a great season this year, but it wasn't like he was a top corner in the league, but he took someone that I think all three of us can agree, probably should have been cut after the preseason and turned him into at least a serviceable corner throughout the season. It just doesn't make sense to me unless you're getting something huge in return, or it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, there was some things that didn't make sense with the Laramie Tunsil at the time, because you were trading away a premier left tackle, and then obviously everything shapes out and works the way it does. So, hindsight's 2020, but right now I thought it was cap. I saw that tweet from Leggard, whatever his name was, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, whatever. See you later, bro. All those NBA insiders that tweet out random information, or that dude that went to UM that are always tweeting out stuff every other day about Tom Brady, this and that, and never anything. And then once the Sun Sentinel put something up, I was like, maybe there's some validity to this.
Yeah. So my take on this whole thing is that it feels like this is something that we've heard before, because I feel like last year there was also discussions about Xavier Howard being on the trade block. The Dolphins were trying to get something for him to add to their already massive haul of draft picks. And not only that, we do have to take this into some consideration, because remember, last season we all thought for sure that Laramie Tunsil was untouchable, that there's no way that the Dolphins would ever be given up unless it was literally a king's ransom type of thing. But the scary part is they got that king's ransom. Obviously, Houston Texans for Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills, they gave us 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, and Julian Davenport, which I feel like is actually more of a hindrance than a help at this point. But it's so for somebody like Xavier Howard, who is not only he also plays a premier position, cornerback. He also plays, and he's proven himself to be one of the better corners in football, even if you don't want to say he's the best, which you could make that argument, because in coverage he kind of has his moments where he kind of slips and falls, kind of makes a few mistakes here and there. His game is all about turnovers. His game is all about he's about jumping the routes, getting in the way of the wide receiver, and basically making that catch. So quite frankly, I would be surprised if they traded him. At the same time, though, I know that it's not impossible, so we can't just summarily dismiss this whole thing and pretend like it's a nothing burger, because we've already seen that Chris Grier, if given the right stuff, then he might be willing to pull the trigger. Now, with that being the case, and I'll go ahead and ask you this, Michael, let's say the Dolphins do trade Xavier Howard, which, again, I'm not convinced they will, but what would it take for you to actually part ways with him?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question, right? Because then it kind of contradicts what we've been thinking about this team already, right? We're sitting at 3-3, and they just put in Tua, and then you have a bunch of different sides of the argument, but we all believe that Brian Flores is doing what he thinks is best for this team to win games. Is trading away Xavien Howard the best thing to win games? No, unless it's for an impact player that can come in now, right? So it depends on what their actual motives are. And if my belief is right, which is that we want to win games, I want a high value player, somebody that can come in, step in right away and actually bring value to this team to help us win now. And on top of that, maybe a pick or two, depending on what the player is. Unless we're talking about somebody, I know how it's tweeted out, and it's kind of ridiculous to think about it, but it would be kind of fun if it was. Unless we were trading Howard for Michael Thomas, right? I do expect the trade to come along with any player that we do get. But if we're looking at just picks, yeah, I need maybe 2 firsts and a second again, just because of the kind of player he is. He's leading the league in interceptions. He shuts down his guys when he really wants to, but then he has some lapses as well. I know last year when we talked about trading Howard was near the beginning of the season when it was all the Tunsil talk, right? And everybody said, we're not going to trade Tunsil. And we did. And at that point, I actually thought we just paid Howard a ton of money, but maybe we should trade him, right? Not that he's a bad player, but if we're tanking, we're trying to get picks or we're trying to do whatever, get rid of Howard. We kept him. It looks good. And you've got him and Byron Jones playing next to each other. And our defense is looking solid. I think you keep them together if you want to win. But if you get a great offer, 2 firsts and a second, or you get a high value player, somebody who's really top and can fill a hole that we need, like a really good defensive tackle, a solid inside linebacker, I'd consider it. But yeah, unless it's 2 firsts and a second, I don't do anything with picks for Howard.
I just can't. I like, Jakari saying that it could be for a high player and things like that. It's just that right now it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The way how him and Byron Jones have meshed and played well together, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see how you can make that right now.
And what team is going to trade first round picks for Xavien Howard? The only teams that are going to do that are teams that are already winning, and the picks are going to be late first round. And I'm not knocking a late first round pick. That's a nice pick. But the Tunsil pick looks great now, but it looks especially great because it looks like it's going to be a top 10 pick from the Texans, right?
Well, even last year at the end, it looked great, even at the end of the season. At first, no one really thought that the Texans were going to be this bad this season, and no one thought that the Texans pick was even probably going to land where it landed last season. Right. It was either they're going to make the playoffs and exit, or they're going to make the playoffs and maybe win a couple games and then exit. And that's, what we saw. It just, I don't know, man. It just can't make sense to me. It has to be for a high player, or if you're trading for a first or whatever you need to do, then and you're flipping that for maybe Stephon Gilmore or a different high player, then that makes sense. But to take away how we saw it game 1, Xavien Howard, Byron Jones click well together on the field. Mm-hmm. Now they're back in the same way. Xavien Howard, Byron Jones click well together on the field. You don't give Byron Jones that contract over the offseason unless you're pairing him with Xavien Howard to have that duo that's going to probably turn to be one of the best, in the NFL if it can stick. Some of the things don't make sense. If you're telling me you're going to trade X, Y, and Z to get Quentin Williams, that makes sense. But you're going to tell me that you're going to trade away Xavien Howard, who's finally back healthy, who's been balling. Even Josh Boyer saying that they don't throw it at his side of the field. Like, they're just not throwing at him because it's not going to work. It's not making sense.
At times, Russell Wilson torched him. Was it the game where he gave up like 150 yards?
I'm not sure which one it was, but it's just like, it makes no sense. And now it's been backed up by Omar Kelly and Joe Shad, sorry. So I guess there's some validity to it. I know that we were talking before that Albright said it wasn't true. I can't find
somebody
much
tweeted
about
at Albright, and he responded and said, I don't know anything about Xavien Howard being on the trade block, but that doesn't mean he's not. He's just saying, I don't have any of that information myself. But
that's the thing.
I can't.
Not everybody knows everything about everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, but whenever Albright tweets something, it's most of the time
it has validity. 100%
of the time, it's fact. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think, obviously, Schefter, Rappaport, stuff like Tom Pelissaro, guys like that. But usually Albright is the guy that will have something and won't get credit for it because he's just Benjamin Albright.
And this is how it started with Tunsil too, right? There was smoke and then there was fire, right? Like, there was talks about Tunsil and we were all like, it's not going to happen. He's way too good. And then we did trade him, right? The price kept going up. I think that might be part of what this is. right? It might just be a price thing as well.
The other thing in Brooklyn Rob talked about is that is it possible that they're meaning Jordan Howard and not Xavien Howard? But that's if that were the case, I figured somebody would have clarified it by now and said, no, that's not who we're not talking about Xavier. They're talking about Jordan.
And it wouldn't really be news. Like Jordan Howard isn't even playing for us. If he gets traded away, we literally lose nothing. So,
I mean, if we traded him and got a 7th round pick for it, I mean, I guess that's technically a win if you think about it.
We're not. He's not even.
If we got anything for Jordan Howard, that would be just
Chris Greer doing magic again. Yeah,
he always pulls off something, but that would just be absolutely ridiculous. That would stun me.
Well, and I'm curious too because this organization has done a pretty good job keeping things under wraps, at least with this regime, like in terms of tipping the cap with certain things
to a certain extent.
Yeah,
well, they have.
We had the debacle not just last week. Regarding
that's
the Tua news.
Sure, but we all are pretty sure who that was. So,
yeah, there's a couple guesses, of what that is, who that could have been. It's just that, and with this Jordan Butler, I agree. Like I think one of the main people of Dolphins Twitter needs to chill, calm down. I literally recorded a video yesterday that half of it's talking about the expectations for Tua, which will go up tomorrow, by the way, 5 Reasons Sports Channel. And it said, like, in it, I'm saying, we got to calm down and stop expecting him to go out there and freaking turn into Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Russell Wilson, whatever you want to put on him in that situation. I just think that, like, it's not really a chill, this and that, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, we have to remember that this is not so far out of the realm of possibility. It doesn't make sense right now to do, but it's not far out of the realm of possibility because there were the same talks last year. There were the same talks during the offseason where it's possible. I mean, if you could probably argue that if he had gotten suspended for I guess it never went to court. So I guess you have to say alleged, whatever, the situation that we all know about. If he had gotten suspended for that or whatever had happened for that, he probably isn't on the Dolphins right now.
Yep.
And so this is not far-fetched to think that it could happen. Right now, it just doesn't make sense. And I think that everyone in Dolphins Twitter can agree with it. Unless they're getting something huge, then it just wouldn't make any sense.
Would you, if some crazy team came along and said, we'll give you the Tunsil deal, would you jump on it?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt. But that's huge. Like, if you give me 2 firsts and 2 seconds for Xavier Howard, I'm instantly, like, I'm saying yes, calling the NFL league office, making sure the trade gets approved, and then I'm calling you back and laughing. Like, it's not that to say that Xavier Howard is like, yeah, put him out there. But I mean, you give me the Tunsil deal for that. Like, are you kidding me? I'm going to call you back and laugh in your face when it's official.
Well, and especially because at that point we can take some of that extra draft capital and then
turn it into something else.
Another cornerback now if we wanted to, which I do think, look, especially because he's worked with him before, I'm sure Brian Flores has his ear on the whole Gilmore thing.
Yeah, he has
he's
to.
paying attention to it. And would all of us agree that Stephon Gilmore is a step up over Xavier Howard?
In coverage, I guess, but as far as creating plays,
okay. In terms of creating turnovers, right? Because that's where you got.
For turnovers, I'm picking Howard. Now, just raw coverage type of corner, then yeah, I guess Gilmore is better, but it's not enough that I would be willing to just say, yes, Gilmore is an upgrade over Xavier Howard. No, I wouldn't say that.
If I could swap them 1 for 1 because of the history that he has with Gilmore, I think I'd do it, especially since we know that Howard has that injury history, right? Where every couple of games he has a bad game. And then lately he's been playing more consistent than he was before, right? Because before he would get 2 interceptions and then disappear, and then 2 interceptions again and then disappear, right? So that's where I would take Gilmore over Howard, right? So if I could flip them basically for the same thing 1 for 1, I'd make that trade personally. I know the turnovers are nice, but I just feel like Gilmore gives you a more consistent good coverage there.
I don't know. I think for me, I'm just kind of used to the idea of having Xavier Howard, and even if I don't think that if the Patriots really are desperate to remove players, and they need they're not going to take a 1-to-1 anyway. Or I should say, the Dolphins shouldn't take a 1-to-1. Alfredo said it just a minute ago. I'll just go ahead and pull that up again. That Greer likes to win trades. So if that's the case, then winning the trade and trading Howard for Gilmore straight up, that's not a win. Not really.
Right.
Not even close.
No.
Not even close.
That says, oh, we'll just swap this guy for that guy, and Gilmore may or may not do more or less than Xavien Howard now. So if I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trade Howard to the Patriots and we get Gilmore, they better be willing to trade something else along with that to make it worth our while. If we're gonna, because otherwise I'm going to stand pat. Like, I'm not going to swap guys just for the sake of swapping guys.
Sure. It's not just a matter of changing it up. And the thing is, there's no reason. This is so shocking to all of us because it hasn't been anything outstanding with Xavien Howard to be like, oh yeah, he deserves to be on the block. He's been playing really well. He leads the league in interceptions, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, we're going to put him on the trade block and see what we can get. I honestly think a lot of this was somebody called, asked if he was available, threw out some really intriguing offer that was probably really high value, and the Dolphins were like, for that, we'll have to think about it. We'll get back to you. That's what I honestly think a lot of this is coming down to. It's not that they were calling saying, hey, does anybody want Xavien Howard? Somebody called them and said, hey, what about 2 first-round picks? Would you do that? And they're like, well, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. I think that's more what this is.
Because it says they have a trade in place, which probably means from, the Sun Sentinel, which probably means that, like, there's something, like you said, someone called and was like, hey, what would it take to get Xavien Howard? And then Chris Greer probably said, well, blow me away with whatever you have. And it must have been enough where, I don't know, I wouldn't say that this was, obviously, I don't have any inside sources, I'm just Kai. But I don't think that this is coming directly out of the Dolphins organization. It's probably with the team that called, because they were probably like stunned. Okay, whoa, the Dolphins are this. Let's put something out there to see if maybe we could pressure them to accept this deal or take less. But it had to be something enough where it was put out there, because I don't think the Dolphins, as you said, Michael, are going out there like, hey,
no,
what do you who wants Xavien Howard, all pro corner potentially that is on a roll right now, playing very great, one of the our best defensive backs, and someone who we've had and developed here since 2017. For me, I just off the bat, I would hate it. I've been an Xavien Howard truther since he was drafted by the team in the second round out of Baylor. Every single time that he has a good game, I go at every single person that was calling me crazy for liking him through his injuries, and I at them on Twitter. Because it's just, sometimes you got to take your small victories, So, like, I would hate it. And it just doesn't make sense. But as
does it make sense? Does it make sense if we're playing for the future and not 2020?
Yes, of course.
Well, maybe that's.
But
what
if it's
doing.
a deal, a deal that blows us away, if it's not a deal that blows us away, then what's the point? If let's say, because something like this, maybe it happens rapidly, because I don't think something like this comes out unless it's going to get squashed by tomorrow. Something like this probably has a situation where everything gets done quickly, and it's not going to be a situation where you have him go into the week and play on Sunday and have a situation where, like, there's a possibility by Tuesday he's traded. Like, do you guys think that that's really going to be somewhere where that stands?
No.
Like, you don't want him to go and play on Sunday with these rumors coming out there and then having a situation where it's like, all right, yeah, on Tuesday we're going to ship you out. I don't think
he's been a part of these rumors before, right? Like, this is nothing too new to him, and I think so. And that's where I would be confused if they made this move for the future, right? If it was because somebody called in and gave us that outstanding offer, I can't blame anybody for making that trade. Right. But if they're looking for just a pick or two for the future, then that confuses me on the Tua move, because I assume that the Tua move was because we wanted to win now, and we thought that Tua gave us the better option to win now, right? Which, if we're thinking about the future, why did we even play Ryan Fitzpatrick last year when we could have played Josh Rosen? And I understand that they assumed they knew what they had with Rosen, and we all kind of agree with them and are fine with having let him go. But there was no gain in playing Fitzpatrick other than losing draft position. I just don't think that they would make a move to say, hey, let's take our best cornerback right now and trade him away for picks because we're thinking about 10 years from now, as opposed to the moves that we've just made were about winning now, right? It's just going to cement what all the national media has been saying about, oh, they're just thinking about the future, not now, which I don't think is the case.
But again, it just doesn't make sense. Like, again, it has to be something that blows you away, because if we all, let's again to the start of that point is that if we all throughout the day, right, we go through our days, let's say by 9 o'clock or something, we get Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, whoever, someone tweets out, Miami Dolphins traded Xavien Howard for a first-round pick, and that's it. What's your immediate reaction?
Gentlemen, I have some more news for you. This is why we talk about it being unscripted. Here we go. This is from Barry
I was
Jackson.
about to read that. I just saw it.
Yeah. So Dolphins to Barry Jackson. The report in the South Florida Sun Sentinel is factually inaccurate and based on rumors. The paper practiced poor journalism by not reaching out to the team for comment or the chance to respond to the story. We are not exploring any trades regarding Xavier Howard. So
and there you go.
That quashes the whole thing right there, I guess. I mean, well, you know what? I'll say that as a yes, okay, but also we're gonna still have a tiny pinch of maybe, because remember the Jets. There's the Jets. There's conflicting reports on the Jets thing too. Like, oh yeah, we're totally listening to offers on Quentin Williams, and then there's no, we're not listening to offers on Quentin Williams. Like ours, don't touch him. So actually, that's what I wanted to go ahead and talk about next. So since the Dolphins have basically tried to put the kibosh on this whole Xavier Howard talk, let's go ahead.
Just to quickly end this, like I was saying, that's why it doesn't make any sense. Like that's why this rumor didn't make any, like, or not. I guess now, it's a rumor, but that's why that made absolutely no sense. Like it again, it would have had to be for something outlandish. It literally just made no sense.
Right.
So now, since we have a few minutes left, I'm going to go ahead and discuss this. So again, the trade deadline is November 3rd. That's when this whole thing finally comes to a close. That's the last time that the Dolphins can even consider adding some new talent. I recently did actually write a column on 5 Reasons Sports regarding the top 3 targets that I would like the Dolphins to look at. And I know that I see Anthony Manzano here. He's talking about Harrison Smith. I personally chose Justin Reed of the Texans to look at simply because he's younger and he has more room for development, I would say. So I'll go ahead and start with you, Michael. What would you get? Let's go ahead and address for the Harrison Smith thing, are that's something that people.
How old is Harrison Smith? Because
he's over 30. He is. That's what made me.
I got
Harrison Smith. He's 31. So Harrison Smith is 31, which isn't too old. I do think he helps. I think Bobby McCain is playing fairly well, and surprisingly, I don't think he's the solve all for the future. I
guess Alfredo got whooped a while back ago with the Melvin Gordon thing.
You got to learn your place, Alfredo. Watch out, man. I think for Harrison Smith, man, because of the age, I don't know where his contract situation is at. I'd maybe give up a 3rd-round pick for him.
He is currently on. If we traded for him now, we would be on the hook for about $10 million of his cap hit, because that's what he's got. Right. Well, I mean, not all of it. They already paid some of it.
But that's basically all the cap hit all the cap space we have left. We have $16 million just about, so we'd have $6 million left after the deal, I think, based on a tweet I saw. I mean, a 3rd-round pick maybe, but even then, I don't think Harrison Smith is too top of mind for me. I don't think he's. I agreed with you. I read your article. I think Justin Reed makes more sense between those two. If they take a 3rd-round pick for Harrison Smith, sure, I'll do it. But more than that, I would just hang up the phone and be like, nah, I'm all right.
Yeah, I'm for Harrison. I look, when I made my column, I basically wanted to pick guys who were on the younger side, who would fit the youth movement that the Dolphins are putting up, and they could potentially be brought back later down the line. Because the other guy I had on my list, I had Justin Reed from the Texans, because the Texans need draft capital. They basically have an empty cupboard when it comes to their draft picks. Then you have I put John Ross of the Bengals, because he basically said, I want out of Cincinnati.
Well, and that could be a cheap deal too. That could be like that can be a cheap deal too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So that's something that the Dolphins can get on the cheap. Absolutely. And they can get some blistering speed out there, because right now all they really have on that front is Jakeem Grant. Albert Wilson is not playing, and I'm honestly not sure if they'll bring him back at all. And while John Ross struggles with catching footballs, that's kind of Jakeem Grant again. So honestly, you just have a slightly taller. Well, not slightly. He's significantly taller than Jakeem Grant. Everybody's taller than Jakeem Grant. But that would be an opportunity for Tua, because accuracy is a big deal with him, and that's something that he could have an advantage of, because all John Ross has to do is fly down the field, and he's going to get open. We don't have guys that can create separation, so that raw speed would be able to help a lot. And the other guy
was talking about Brandon Cooks too.
On
that topic.
God,
Yeah,
Brandon Cooks just gets traded after, like, he's like.
but that's the thing that gets me. That's the thing that confuses me. If Brandon Cooks is so special, why does he keep team hopping? That's what I'm not sure about.
It's confusing. I think he must just not mesh very well with whatever coaching staffs he ends up with. Like, he may just not be an easy guy to mesh with. Like, that's the only thing that comes to mind, because he played great in New Orleans. Then he played well in his season. What was it, 1 or 2 in New England? And
Brian Flores was on the staff when he was there, so there is that. There is the familiarity there, something to consider. Now the question is, do Cooks and Flores get along, or do they not get along?
Yeah, I think they would. I think Flores is the kind of guy that could make anyone get along with him. One guy that we haven't talked about that I would look for in a trade too is Grady Jarrett from the Falcons, just because the Falcons are, they're.
Bring Deion Jones up,
guys. Yeah, I would look at the Falcons. I feel like they'd be willing to trade, especially since Matt Ryan is in the twilight of his career. I don't think he's going to continue to get better. I think they've missed a lot of the window.
What does Grady Jarrett bring to the table if you brought him in that we don't already have?
Oh, I think he brings in depth at the defensive tackle spot and gives you a really solid starter at defensive tackle. I like Raekwon Davis and Christian Wilkins, but I don't know if they can continue to do it without any depth and just constantly having to go out there and constantly do it over and over again, especially since Raekwon is young. I would put Grady Jarrett in front of Raekwon Davis, have Raekwon learn from Grady Jarrett, and then when the contract is done, if Davis has stepped up, fine, let Jarrett go, move up Davis. But I do think we need some interior defensive line help. I don't think our depth is there right now, and I think it helps stop the run because we don't have the linebacker for it. So if we can get some interior help, I think it would be.
I wanted Quentin Williams. Quentin Williams. 2nd round pick, 4th round pick, 6th round pick. Package them all together, send it over to New York, and we have ourselves a terrific duo with Christian Wilkins and Quentin Williams, quite frankly. That's my official trade offer to the New York Jets. I'm not giving them a 1st rounder, but I'll give them a 2nd rounder for somebody who was a 3rd overall pick and was projected to be one of the best defensive linemen in football in a little while. I've read up on the whole
bless you to himself.
He's definitely got a big person. He got a big personality. I'll say that. But you know what? I've read up on some of the Quentin Williams situation, and a lot of it I think has to do with the fact that A, it's the Jets, and B, Greg Williams is kind of misusing him. From what I've read, they're not using him in ways that would actually be good to him. Now, if we've heard that before, we figure that really good players should be able to function in whatever system that they get thrown into. So now, we have to keep in mind Quentin Williams is only in his 2nd season in the NFL. He's still got plenty of years left on that rookie contract. So if they could get their hands on Quentin Williams for a 2nd, a 4, and a 6, this is something else that I also wrote in the column was that this and 3 yards per carry. Alfredo, I see him in the chat still. He talked about this on 3 yards per carry. Everybody who hasn't listened to it, you should go check that out. Absolutely. With Simon Clancy and Chris Kaufman and Alfredo. He was discussing, I listened to it last night, that the scouting has taken a serious hit all across the NFL with the whole COVID-19 situation. It's very difficult to get a reading on all these new players. So it's going to be a crapshoot no matter what. So if I'm the Dolphins, I'm not really putting as much stock into our draft picks unless they are used. I almost want to say almost like the NBA does it. Like NBA draft picks are kind of not really used all the time to actually pick a player. They're more like, here's a little ammo. Now give us your superstar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that for the Dolphins, that is a situation that they have to consider, because if you can get somebody like Quentin Williams for a 2, 4, and a 6, and you're not sure what you're going to get in the draft anyway, because the scouting department can't get a full read on everything, then I would absolutely jump on that. If the Jets are looking for a serious offer, then we won't give you a 1st rounder, but if you want more than a 2nd, here's a mid round and a late round pick. Now take it or leave it.
Yeah. That seems like a great deal. Sorry, go ahead, Kai.
No, I was just saying, I just think that if you get the chance to make that deal to get Quentin Williams, I think you jump all over it. And the other thing I was going to say is, and it leads back to the other thing with, when we were talking about Xavien Howard, kind of, the trades, how it's going to happen, whatever, what would happen regarding, next Tuesday's the trade deadline, everything like that. With the COVID protocols, even if you make a trade by Tuesday, let's say you make it on Tuesday, they wouldn't be able to play with you until that next week because of, I think now it's 6 days instead of 7 or 5 days instead of 6, 7, whatever it was. But
does it apply if they're already in it though?
I think that it's super finicky, I think is like the correct word.
Yeah, because I don't think it did for Bell. I think Bell
like
could have
just
played.
it's really weird, I think, is how it's working. So they're trying to make it easier, but at the same time, still keep it within the COVID-19 regulations so that, you're not going to just, nothing bad will happen within the team and everything like that. Do you guys think that maybe a trade like that for Quentin Williams, again, I think it all comes down to like, does that happen before Sunday? Do those trades happen on like, let's say a Thursday or Friday, stuff like that before you play that game on Sunday? Obviously the Jets trade players before games, have them play and then go, ride all the way to the Buccaneers. But, does that happen? Does a situation like that happen so that maybe a team wants to get that player in a little bit earlier if those COVID-19 regulations have to be followed and they wouldn't be able to play that week?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins use this game against the Rams to to solidify or not whatever they think they might need or want in a trade. I don't think we see any trades from the Dolphins before this game, right? Like, I don't think we trade for anybody that comes in right away. But I do think that this team is going to make a move. I mean, we tried to throw so much money at Le'Veon Bell. It doesn't make sense to me why we wouldn't try to make a move at the deadline for something. And I saw Anthony's comment, Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons is someone I would take, sure. But again, I wouldn't pay too much. He's on a franchise tag. You're not really looking at much of a future with him. For Justin Simmons, because he's younger and I think he has a higher ceiling than Smith, I'd give up a second. But I think the Dolphins do make a move before, next Tuesday?
I think next Tuesday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, I think next Monday by like midday to late in the afternoon, I think we have a deal in place for something where the Dolphins are trying to make themselves better in some way.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to be quiet. It's just, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the move this season. I think that they're going to be a little bit more active, and maybe even the trade, usually we talk about the NBA with the trade deadline and how active that is, and the NFL is kind of more on the quiet side. Maybe the Dolphins, try to switch some stuff up and really make a play. I think Quentin Williams is probably the most interesting one. I like what Javon said with if the card starts to not like Isaiah Simmons, maybe we could pull something off. I found that super interesting, and then of course, Alfredo talking about Justin Reed. It's just so interesting to me that like Isaiah Simmons is just kind of sitting on the Cardinals, and he was talking about this guy to be so big for them, and he's just kind of sitting, not
There's
playing.
No way they trade him away. I
don't think there's a way they trade him away, but just it's interesting to me just because I saw that how you could have a guy like that so many people were talking about is just such a again, the Minka Fitzpatrick term, Swiss Army knife. He makes, and then you have him on the bench. He's not playing like many snaps, and then he makes the biggest play for your team in probably the season thus far to put you in the position to win the game against the Seahawks.
Now I'm just trying to figure out if Alfredo's saying the most obvious is a compliment or is not obvious. Yeah. Is it obvious as in I chose something cliche or that I was actually a smart move? I don't know. But anyway, before we bring this to a close for this first unscripted episode, there was one last thing. Well, okay, I'll address the David King thing because he's talking about Isaiah Simmons. I really don't think that the Cardinals are going to part ways with Isaiah Simmons not even after the rookie season has come to a close.
Yeah. A day after he just had an incredible pick against
Yeah, I don't think Isaiah Simmons is going anywhere for at least a little while.
I don't think he's going anywhere, but I just thought it was interesting to touch on the fact that like it just seems like they have this talent just sitting there, just like, all right, yeah, cool,
doing nothing. Yeah. But I mean, anything is possible at this point. The Cardinals, they're actually, they just beat the Seahawks. I don't think they're going to be like looking to do fire sale right now. So they're going to keep their hands on this guy. So one last thing before we bring it to a close, and it's probably the one thing that we haven't discussed yet. Dolphins as sellers, not Xavien Howard. We've all seen the rumor, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Our veteran 37-year-old quarterback. Would you trade him to the Dallas Cowboys, who desperately need a quarterback now that they've lost Andy Dalton as well? I think that's Kai's way of saying I'm not talking about this. It's like, no, I'm
100%,
walking off the set.
I mean,
without a doubt,
there's no way I'd trade him.
The Cowboys offer me a 4th round or higher, bro. 100% take him.
Dude,
whoa, what? For real?
I'm dead ass.
First of all,
serious.
That was the dumbest trade for the
Cowboys. Bro. If the Cowboys do something stupid, man, like I gotta take, like, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be like, hey, let Jerry, let's talk. Come on, you don't, your hand doesn't get cramped writing checks. You can't pay your star quarterback. But here, let me trade you Ryan Fitzpatrick for the rest of your season. so you don't have to start. What's this dude's name that they played on? I can't pronounce
the third string. I don't even.
Yeah,
know.
the third string quarterback or whatever. So you don't have to start him for a couple games.
Ben
Then you'll have Andy Dalton or whatever. It's just Ben DiNucci, I think his name is. Like if they blow me away with an offer essentially for Fitz, it's like maybe you got to do it. Like I don't know, man.
I feel like make your bed, guy. That's all I'm talking about. I refuse. A fourth sounds nice. Granted, if they offered me a first round pick or a second round pick for Fitzpatrick, I mean, I think I'd have to do that just because the value there is outstanding. But I don't know if you even look for a trade for Fitzpatrick. First of all, I think it looks bad after his whole heartbreaking press conference he had. Yeah. Right? You bring him down, and then the guys in the locker room like him. Tua likes him. I'm sure Tua already feels bad having the job.
He said he feels bad.
But I'm sure he feels bad. To then go and trade him away to some random place. I don't think you can make that trade. I don't even think there are many people calling for him.
I don't think that you are actively shopping him, and literally you'd have to have something, because I love Fitzpatrick. I think that he is great for the team, the locker room. It's clear that everybody loves him. He plays the game with a heart and a passion that not a lot of many people do. But if you get blown away,
if they offer me a second round pick for Ryan Fitzpatrick, then I'll take it. But anything beyond that, listen, they were able to get, some team gave up a first rounder for Brock Osweiler. Some team gave up multiple first round picks for, I can't even remember the guy, Sam Bradford. For Ryan Fitzpatrick, after the performances that he's put forward, I'm taking a second or let him sit there. No way. Sorry, I'm not getting rid of him.
Well, and it kind of comes down to, and David's saying it, if Fitzpatrick comes up to me and says, hey, I want to play, right? Send me somewhere where I can play, and then I'll retire after that, then I'd do it, right? If he's asking for it. But I don't think he's going to. That doesn't seem like Fitzpatrick's deal. I don't know. I keep him. I don't trade him away for a fourth or a fifth round pick. I don't even think a fourth or fifth round pick would bring that much to the table, as opposed to what Fitzpatrick could talk to Tua about on the sidelines when something happens, right? Because the quarterback's coach is there and all the other coaches are there. But I think Fitz can bring something that a lot of those coaches can't, which is why I'd like to bring Fitz back as a coach. So I wouldn't get rid of him.
Yeah, unless they give me I know that everybody's everybody's on Kai's side with the whole discussion, but they have to do the same kind of thing. They have to blow me away, relatively speaking, for Ryan Fitzpatrick before I.
No, but that's where I'm at. I'm not. No, I agree with Michael in the terms of this. He's perfect for the locker room, perfect for Tua, perfect in terms of I would love to have him come back into coaching.
You also said that if they gave him a fourth rounder, you'd be like, "Yep, he's gone."
Okay, well, a fourth for Ryan Fitzpatrick at this point is kind of nice, to be perfectly honest with you. But
a fourth round pick,
if they blow me away, then I don't know. You kind of gotta do it, man.
You know what? You've changed my mind now, Kai. I want 2 first and 2 second for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now,
if someone offered that, I think that Twitter would break into pieces. The national media would immediately turn on Ryan Fitzpatrick because they'd be like, "You're trading this for a journeyman," and then we'd all be looking at them like, "But
I don't care. I'll take it."
But then you just
no, it's just, I like the guy too. I mean, he's such a great guy. I think keep him. I think he brings too much to the table to give him away now.
His knowledge for Tua is invaluable, I think. So by all means, I'm keeping him unless they're willing to give me a lot of stuff. Yeah. So
my last statement on the Xavien Howard stuff is, although the Dolphins did just slam dunk the Sun Sentinel and call them essentially a piece of dirt, we do have to remember that similar situations have happened in the past, and maybe the entire report might have been not factual that they're shopping him, but maybe if someone does blow them away, they'd take a trade. I think we all have to remember that.
Yeah. It's not like it's impossible.
But good on the Dolphins for literally slam dunking the Sun Sentinel and just absolutely destroying them.
Well, I'm curious as to where it even came from.
Right? That one dude, I don't know who that dude is. I saw the tweet. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know. I've never even seen this guy before. But he's got a blue check mark, so I
really highly doubt that the Sun Sentinel was like, oh, some guy with a blue check mark said it on Twitter. Must be true. I'm sure they heard it somewhere else.
If Barry said something that they had heard something similar, and wanted to get something out of the Dolphins, which is why I again think like, just because they said that they're not shopping him doesn't mean that it's not true that potentially someone could have offered them something that was, pretty outstanding.
Well, and with that being out there, I'm sure they're getting calls now about him. So,
of course, 100%. So
nobody's truly ever untouchable. No one.
Nope.
No one. So,
well,
all right, guys.
Tua's untouchable.
Tua's untouchable.
Not if we get the Jets first round pick and we get Trevor Lawrence.
No.
Tua's untouchable.
Untouchable.
Okay.
Unless it turns out to actually be the number 1 overall pick, and then Tua just shits the bed. Then you think about
if he has a terrible 10 games and then they say we'll give you the number 1 overall pick and another first round pick, fine. Then I'll give him away. Nothing else. Nothing.
Tua's gonna do good on Sunday.
I'll be there on Sunday cheering him on, and I'll watch him throw. I'm gonna call it now. 2 touchdowns.
Make sure you go to Flanny's while you're here.
Make sure you go
50 yards.
Make sure you
don't go to Flanny's, but
Michael,
at least get pickup because you're
make sure you go on to prizepicks.com to make sure you put in that over under on Tua's touchdowns.
Oh, I already did. I literally already did.
All right. So there you go. Oh, and for you, Kai.
Yo, I know this dude. I'm not gonna say what I want to say because I respect Ethan Skolnick and the opportunity he's given me, and I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to.
Yeah, only Alf can do what you're thinking.
Listen, I know that both of you guys are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. It's all right, bro.
All right. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you all so much for joining us for this first episode of Unscripted. If we have something else crazy come out, then feel free to check in with us again because we'll be here if there's something wacky that comes out and it's breaking news that's going to have the whole world talking, you'll better be sure that we'll be here on 5 Reasons Sports talking about it.
Absolutely.
All right. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen.
Adios.
See ya.